You know, it's interesting. We talk about setups, you know, for hunting the perfect morning stand, when to hunt morning stands, when to hunt morning stands during the rut. And we talk about these setups that lead into, you know, having that perfect hunt where you say, we're going to go in there and probably shoot a buck when we go sit in these conditions. I call them 50% sits. And people say, well, you know, 50% sit can't happen, meaning 50% of the time you shoot a buck. That's because they don't put all the pieces together or necessarily know how. And it's not a slam on them. It's just that you have to have experience to do this. And I want to talk about the perfect rut setup now. And we talked about this in January, February, March. Dylan, was that February maybe when we did that?
So.
We talked about the perfect bedding area setup and morning rut stand. And what I like to do is not just teach, not just talk about this stuff, but actually talk about it coming from the experience of having success with these setups so that, you know, you can talk about anything. We can talk about all kinds of goofy concepts, but when you have repeated success, not just 1 year, 2 year, but you can put it over many, many different properties, locations to hunt, public, private land, then it's something I want to teach you guys. And I want you guys to learn from. So we're going to talk about a rut setup during the rut. And we've had recent success with this. And I want to talk about why and what goes into it. It doesn't matter if it's public or private land. We'll talk about that, about how you can have the perfect rut setup. And it's not too late, you know, for either whether you find this on your own property or you go find it on public land. But right now, your rut hunt might be getting a little stale. We're getting into the middle of the peak rut in a lot of locations. And there's a lot of rut yet to come. So let's focus on this perfect rut setup that has been proven successful time and time again throughout the decades. For one, bucks move a lot more during the morning hours. And they do this because it's cooler. There's many different people with a lot of experience that'll talk about, you know, under 50 degrees in the Midwest, bucks will move more. Your trail cameras show that. You know, right now we have a few dozen cameras out in the woods, a couple dozen or more cell cameras, and so we can see these deer moving, and we can see when they're not, we can see when they do, and it's just that simple, folks. If you're relying on studies of big property, big movement, big wilderness, big hardwood settings, commercial forest, state forest, federal, a little bit different in locations like that because deer move freely, they can move anywhere if they don't have pressure. Radio collar studies don't mean much when properties are fragmented, meaning the smaller the parcels, the more fragmented they are. The more mature bucks don't move a lot, and especially across boundaries, because if they do, they wouldn't be mature, they'd be dead. The more boundaries they cross, the more hunters are exposed to. So we're talking about really concise, small movements, and the weather greatly influences that. But temperature being the most important of the weather, when we see those cooler morning temperatures, and for example, today it's 67 in the morning, it's going to be 45 tonight, 50 tonight at dark. That's different. You know, we'll put an evening priority instead of a morning priority. Usually it's the other way around. It's warming up during the day. It's getting dark at 6. At 1 or 2 or 3, it maxes out with that daytime high. And that means a 27 degree morning temperature that's going to be 51 in the afternoon is still likely in the 30s. You guys, I normally don't do this. You might get sick of this, but hunt-wise and the hunt cast feature that I talk about when to hunt all these great weather options in HuntCast is 25% off. The link is in my description. Please, guys, go check it out. Really hope you can take advantage of this. Right around there, at least, all the way through till noon. It's comfortable cruising conditions. Doesn't matter if it's for us or deer. Dylan and I were talking about this, and I'm sure there's some studies out there that would apply to this for mature bucks. You know, how long can they actually push it during the rut? Do they push it for 12 hours straight? You know, running hard, cruising hard? I have my doubts. 4 or 5 hours seems reasonable. 24 hours, no. So there's times where if it's a good time here, it's going to be a bad time here. And so the morning is such a priority during the rut that I love to hunt mornings, and that means bedding areas. And so when you're hunting that perfect rut stand location, to me it has to involve bedding areas, meaning you're hunting not in the middle of the bedding area where you're going all in for broke. I shot a buck a few days ago, third day of Minnesota's gun season. I shot him with my bow. He died in the middle of a bedding area that we had cut during February. Dylan did drone work back then. We did a lot of work. You know, a lot of this stuff takes a lot of planning. You know, it's different on private land because you have to work harder. Public land, you just go find it. Same conditions though, same condition. But he died right in the middle of the bedding area. And we're not hunting in the middle of the bedding area though, because then if the wind's blowing in any direction, we're gonna hit deer on the downwind edge and we're gonna ruin that bedding area. It doesn't take much. You ruin it with a few mature does, but especially a mature buck you're after. Once you get your scent, you're done. So I hunt on the outside edge of that bedding area. That's critical. Perfect. A lot of my stands end there. It's on the outside edge of bedding area. I have good access, and I have the wind controlled, meaning I'm blowing it to a non-deer area. Perfect rut, morning, setup, and you can expect action all the way through noon, 1 o'clock. But again, those deer have to take a break. And that's what we see. We've had times where in 4 days in early November, southwest Wisconsin, we've seen 26, 27 bucks. My good friend Tim Glover out of Michigan and I. We didn't see a deer between 11:30 and 1. Why is that? Because we had temperatures in the teens every time we went out in the morning, comfortable cruising conditions. Imagine steam coming out of their noses as we're watching them cruise by. But then at some point they got to take a break. And they do, and then they'll back at it a little bit before dark. That's a typical, when you have fragmented small cover parcels, and you have a lot of hunting pressure. It's totally different when you get into big wilderness and big woods where they can just cruise. They don't run into a lot of people. They're not used to that. They might put on miles, but they can't do that where there's a lot of property boundaries or they wouldn't get to that age. They'd be dead. So you tend to see those mature buck, and they don't do scientific studies on small parcels. They really don't. Don't ever believe that you see this kind of science and you apply it to your small parcel, that's going to work. There are. I mean, how long a mature buck can run and cruise for and push. That doesn't matter if it's in Texas or northern Wisconsin. They can only run for so long. It might vary by 10, 20%, but it's not going to vary by double, triple the amount of time just because they're in one locale versus another or one type of property versus another. Number 2, got food. Is that necessarily a good thing? You know, I see a lot of people, cable TV, which I don't watch as much anymore, but I still love the sights and sounds of big giant buck walking through the leaves and coming in. It's pretty. I like that. Now, if you're into deer, you like that. But you see the beautiful redneck blind, which we love our rednecks, but it's sitting in the middle of a small food plot or sitting on the edge where you can't get in and out without spooking deer. Is that the perfect setup? I don't believe so. And a lot of times during the rut, mature bucks are moving. They come through that food plot. That doe looks at the food plot to me sometimes as a highway. Let's just get to the other end and get in the woods and brush, and then we'll stop. Then we'll turn around and see if a buck's coming. I want to be where that buck is stopping, where that doe is stopping, turning around. I want to be in the thick cover. And so I want it thick. I want it on the edge, not necessarily in the food, but the food represents what we'll call the perfect setup down here, that X of pattern, that X of movement that leads to the perfect setup. Because you can have a great setup on the edge of bedding. That's all rut stands. We're always looking at, man, where can we get our next great rut stand, meaning morning stand? Might not necessarily be an evening setup. If it is, it's great. That equals perfection. You know, AM and plus PM equals perfection down here. But as long as it's the morning, I'm going to be happy with that because that's where you're going to capture the majority of the mature buck movement in these fragmented normal parcels where people hunt. So got food. Don't necessarily have to have it. We'll talk about how it relates to the perfect setup later. But bottom line is, if you're sitting in that food source, not a great spot to hunt in the morning because deer can have the ability to be there and you're spooking them when you get in the morning. Often 200 yards before you even walk in, you make a noise, make a stick break, they're gone and they're not coming back. You just ruin the perfect setup if it involves too much food. Access, critical. We have an area on our property here where we access. And we access through that location, and when we're referring to this perfect setup, we access through a bunch of open timber. In fact, open timber enough, big hardwoods, where the other day when I went in and shot my buck, I spooked about 8, 10 turkeys that were roosting above me in the trees. They started taking off. And so open timber where you don't expect deer to be because there's not a lot of cover. And we have good access because we can go around the outside edge of a ridge near a hollow. So we can kind of sneak in where we have ground going up on either side. Open timber, we're not spooking deer, and that's critical. But then once we get to the edge of the cover, that's where the stand location is. And then I expect to blow my scent back into that. And we'll have that eventually. We'll show that in their Hills and Thermal web class. But really what we're doing is I expect a wind coming from the northwest up above my left shoulder, way high up. And in the morning, that'll come over, and then I'll spin back up to my right up the draw. If we have a northerly wind that comes out the head of the draw, comes through the draw, it ends up behind me and uphill. If we have westerly wind, it comes across above me and ends up curling around uphill. So we wait till daybreak, wait for the thermals to rise. It's a perfect scenario for us in hill country, but it wouldn't matter if you're in flat ground, you're just waiting for that wind to go out. So public land, you're looking for that open timber to walk through to the edge of a thicket, maybe bottomland where there's some more diversity of habitat, change in habitat, and you're sitting on the edge of that, not in the middle of it. Even though there's a lot of sign in the middle, you shouldn't even know that, because if you spook that middle, your hunt's done. So I'd rather look at it like, yeah, there's some sign on the outside of this thicket. I'm going to hang my stand here, blow it to the outside. I'm going to wait, and you know what? You get to hunt again because you're on the edge of that thicket. So you have great access. You're on the edge of the thicket. You know there's good sign in there because it's on the outside. You blow your scent to the outside. Now you get to hunt again because you're not spooking out the middle. The people that get to hunt the good spots a few times during the rut are the ones that are successful, but you can't do that if you're hunting in the middle, if you're spooking deer every time in and out, and that's why the food source is so difficult too. Wind, we're controlling our wind, meaning that if we're coming into this spot, it's blowing to the outside. Someone asked me, and I've repeated this a few times, just a couple weeks ago, they said, when do you ever take a chance of hunting a stand with the wrong wind? Now, I'll write this down. This is the easy answer, and it's been this way for me for a few decades. I mean, literally going back into the early 90s. Never. I never take a chance. Never take a chance. Let me repeat that. Never take a chance. I'd rather take a chance on poor access, meaning going all the way around to the right side of the bedding area where I'm on the downwind edge or crosswind edge. I'd rather do that and really have a great hunt in front of me, meaning I haven't spooked anything out, than go take a chance and sit in the middle or sit on the edge with the wrong wind. I'd rather change my access, even if it's thick or difficult or hard to get into, and hunt the other side so that everything in front of me is free. Talking about 180 degrees. You get to a stand location, and then in front of you, in this swath, 180 degrees going out, you haven't walked through, you haven't blown your scent into, you haven't spooked because deer have heard you. That equals perfection and access. A lot of people, unfortunately, they'll walk through this, get to their stand, turn around and hunt this. Very, very bad. Doesn't matter if it's a remote part of your property. You just spooked out the bedding area. Not very good at all. So it leads us to the perfect stand location. AM and PM. I want food somewhere. And rest assured, one of the worst places you can put food is on the edge of your parcel next to your neighbor's land, because you know whose food we're hunting in this spot right here? Our neighbors. It's about 70, 80 yards away. Big food source. Deer come off of that in the morning. They go that way in the evening. Unfortunately, they're not doing a good job planting it, so then there's not a lot of food there. But we're hunting the edge of that movement. So we're not in the food, we're off to the edge. We're in the thick cover. That's where the deer die when we shoot them. And we've shot 2 deer this year out of this location. Shot Jen's buck earlier during the pre-rut, and then I just shot 1 deer in the middle of the peak rut on Monday. Both bucks that were relating to the outside edge of that thick movement, relating to the food. We happen to have a mock scrape and a water hole there. That's not why they're there. We're taking a good spot. It already has a funnel, good access, good bedding area. We cut the bedding area. We actually put a road in so we could get a water hole down there. But the key ingredients are the access, the wind direction, the bedding area. We're hunting off to the edge. We can control our wind. And then we're enhancing it with movement sweeteners, I call them, like a mock scrape, a water hole, things like that. But we're not reinventing the movement. We're just capitalizing on the movement. And that's what you look for on public land. Those same conditions: access, wind, outside edge of a bedding area, and if there's a food source nearby, diversity of habitat, clear cut, maybe a green briar patch up on the top of a ridge system on public land, acorns if they're still in, although it's getting a little bit late, hickories were long ago, or chestnuts were long ago, maybe some fruit trees, an old homestead, something like that in the area that has food, maybe food on the outside edge of that public land. That's one of the best key ingredients. Is you see food plots, you see ag fields, you see golf course neighborhoods in the distance, then you get back the appropriate amount where you're getting away from people, and that puts you in the hot spot, especially for mature bucks, because those does will be closer to the food sources. When you have that food, now you create that X of movement. In this case, we have a bedding area here. We actually have food way up here, big food, and then we have good food down here. Our axis is hidden in an open deer woods right here. Stand location here, water hole mock scrape, big bedding that we cut out in this location. So these deer are coming in, they're coming and cruising the bedding, they're coming and cruising along the food, but we hunt that perfect X of movement in that location. And again, that's why when you're on private land, you never put a big food source next to your neighbor's cover, because who holds all the deer during the daylight? And especially most people are over hunting their food, pressuring the food. Keeps deer off their food during the daylight. Well, where do they stay? They stay back in the thick cover, hopefully on your land, and not the opposite. So this is the perfect rut setup. We try to do this times 10 over here. We try to do this times 3 or 4 over in Wisconsin, a lot smaller property. But the idea is we're always thinking, how can we have another great setup like this? And we've done this. I've done this dozens of times. And that's why when you go into a spot like this during the rut, you expect success. You know, I had lucky, 4 or 5 year old buck. We debate, we kind of try to figure out, he's a smaller body, just not sure what he is, but he's a nice mature buck. He came through first, and then 45, the buck I was holding out for came in. Jen, the buck she shot, field dress 215 pounds, just a big, giant, mature whitetail. But when we go in there, we expect to see these kind of bucks. And see, I've passed up a mature buck down there, shot one, and Jen shot one. So that's 3 mature bucks, and we've sat at, I think a total of Dante sat there, Jen sat there, I've sat there 3 times now. So out of 5 sits, we've had opportunities on 3 mature bucks, and that's what I refer to as a 50% sit, meaning you have a high likelihood, whether it's 60, 70, or 40%. But when you put all those details together, you wait till the perfect time to hunt. You know this is going to work out because of these conditions right here. Then it becomes a highly predictable, perfect rut setup. And whether you built it and you build it for next year, you've already built it and you hunt it more correctly, or you go find it on public land, this is the perfect rut set that'll lead you to success time and time again for many hunting seasons to come. I urge everyone out there to really check out my web classes. They've been wildly successful. We have one that details how you should design your land, another one that details how you should plant and maintain and manage a food plot program. How can you make those decisions that fit your land specifically and not someone else's? Unfortunately, there's so much information in the hunting industry that says you should do this, but it doesn't apply to you. These web classes directly apply to you. And then we have our 3rd web class that came out last year, Rut Web Class, navigating the entire rut. And then we have our 4th one coming out, which is hunting hills and thermals. I urge you to check those out, try the web classes, and they're all about teaching, helping you understand how you can navigate, not only managing your property, food plots, and the rut, but also hunting strategically, hills, thermals, and wherever you pursue whitetails for your dream and your passion.